Figure It Out, Detectives by LakeAwen. Chapter 2. Bruce pressed his hands together and looked up at his children assembled on the staircase. "Please don't be yourselves," Jason drawled. "Ask too many questions?" Damien asked. "Tell her you're Batman," Steph suggested. "Don't scare her away," Bruce sighed. "I realize my suffering brings you all great joy and satisfaction, but I have actually enjoyed my dates with Sally very much, and I would appreciate if you left me with even a faint hope of another one in the future." "We just worry, Bee." Dick leaned against the banister. "I've seen you get your heart broken too many times, you know? You have a habit of dating supervillains," Tim finished. "I was just gonna say terrible people, but that works," Babs agreed. "Except Selina. We love Selina," Jason cut in. "You are forgetting my mother," Damien snapped. "We're really not." Steph ruffled his hair and dodged the knife that was thrown in return. "And sometimes we get caught in the crossfire," Dick continued. Jason nodded his agreement. "Like when Natalia adopted me out from under your nose." "Don't think we've forgotten when you dated Vicky Vale." "Bee dated Vale?" Duke looked like he might throw up. "Oh, yeah." Dick stared into the middle distance. "It was not for a cover, either. And April was an actual, literal serial killer. She was killing serial killers. I vote she gets a pass. And Harley. She killed Harley? No. Bruce also dated Harley, separate from the thing with April." "You dated Aunt Harley?" The foyer echoed with gagging noises. "This," Bruce held up his hands, "is exactly what I mean. Please do not review my dating history in front of Sally and her kids. Please do not pull weapons in front of Sally and her kids. Please do not debate the merits of murder in front of Sally and her kids. You may heckle me all you want in the cave later." "All we want?" Damien's eyes narrowed. Steph whistled. "Damn, you actually like her. I mean, we were going to do that anyways," Tim says. "But I guess we can rein it in for dinner." Bruce pinched the bridge of his nose. "Thank you," he rasped. "Anyway, we're not going to be here," Steph skipped down the stairs, "seeing as we're not your kids." Bruce eyed her suspiciously. Babs was already rolling towards the door. "You know you're always welcome at family dinners." "Not your kid," Steph called over her shoulder. Babs paused at the door just long enough to smirk. "Don't worry, we're setting up a watch party at my place. We'll get all the drama, just with popcorn and PJs. Bruce waved a hand and turned back to the rest of the kids. "You're all going to be on comms with them, aren't you?" 100%, Tim confirmed. "I know you're capable of subtlety. Please try." Cass snapped off a salute, and Bruce headed upstairs to change. "I'll get the door, Alfred." Alfred gave him an amused look, but returned to the kitchen. Bruce squared his shoulders and opened the door. "Please come in. I hope the drive wasn't too long." "Buddy, the driveway was too long." "Percy," Sally murmured. She looked as lovely as always, in a seafoam silk blouse. "The drive was fine, Bruce. I'm sorry we're a little late. There was an accident on 95. "It's quite all right. I'm just glad you're here. It's good to see you all again." "Uh-huh." Percy was glaring at the woodwork. Bruce wondered briefly if they should have introduced the families on more neutral ground, but half his kids were already panicking over theories that Sally was some kind of murderer, and if being home kept them calmer, he'd manage. Estelle seemed unbothered. As always, really. He wasn't sure he'd ever seen her so much as blink in surprise. She smiled up at him, leaning against Sally's leg. "Hi, Bruce." "Hello, Estelle. That's a very nice dress." "Thanks. It's yellow so the dust doesn't show." Sally laughed, hugging Estelle a little closer. "Always practical, this one." "The kids are in the lounge, if you want to follow me." The fact that they weren't in the foyer crowding around meant that they were probably lying in wait, plotting. Maybe it hadn't been a good idea to train so many children in the fine arts of intimidation and interrogation. Not that any of them had given him a choice. All those who admitted to being his children, or at least in his custody, were scattered around the lounge. They'd clearly posed themselves. Damien had Alfred the cat on his lap, for God's sake. Dick and Jason stood near the back of the room, arms folded like bodyguards. Tim perched on one end of a couch, his gala smile firmly in place. Cass was the only one who appeared relaxed, sitting cross-legged between Duke and Tim. She waved as they came in. Percy stopped a few feet into the room, staring at Jason. Jason stared back, the bodyguard act slipping. Bruce looked from one to the other, and then at Dick for help. Help was not forthcoming. Percy slowly held out a hand. Percy Jackson. Jason Todd. Heard you went missing and lost all your memories. Heard the same about you. Nice hair stripe you got there. Same to you. Your eyes always been that green? My whole life. You're adopted, right? At least once. Both boys' knuckles were turning white. How old are you? Depends on who you ask. You've been in the pit. Percy turned white. He took a step back. You've been there? Took a swim during my grand amnesiac vacation. You sort out that rage yet? You're not a camper. I know about you if you were. No idea what you're talking about, kid. Jason, Bruce cut in. Perhaps we can all sit down and discuss this together? The boys looked at him, then Sally, and finally released each other. Yeah, Percy said slowly. I think it's about time we talked. Mom? I'm fine, dear. Estelle's all right. Let's talk. Sally looked up at Bruce. I can't say this is entirely a surprise. I wondered when you talked about Jason. Not this exactly, but... It wasn't that Bruce hadn't noticed the similarities between Jason and Percy when they briefly met in New York. He hadn't wanted to believe it. Had hoped that Sally might have been spared that trauma. It would have been years ago, and Percy seemed to have the Lazarus rage well under control at this point, though he still carried himself like a fighter. Like all of his children did. No need to bring it up until she and Percy were ready. Sally sat in the middle of an empty couch, Percy and Estelle on her left. Bruce sat to her right, and she grasped his hand, managing a smile. With her other hand, she tugged Percy's hand away from his pocket. He allowed it, but continued to stare at Jason. Thought it was just the four of us, he finally said. Everyone said no demigod had ever survived Tartarus. There was a pause, and Tim frowned. When was this? 6 years ago. During the time he was missing, Sally said quietly. Bruce's hand clasped a little closer around hers. But you were missing during that time as well, weren't you? Jason shifted his weight, glancing at Bruce. I was dead, he finally said. I was still dead, then. None of the Jacksons flinched at that, even little Estelle swinging her legs at the end of the couch. Like Hazel? She asked, her tone nothing but curious. Is Hazel a friend of yours? Has she also been in the pit? No, she came back when the doors of death were opened. Percy scanned the room. Are you all demigods? Duke raised his hand. Just me, I guess? Depends on how you define God. Sally frowned at Jason. You're mortal? We're all mortal, Bruce clarified. Duke is a meta because of his biological father. Sally's frown deepened. Bruce, honey, I'm gonna need a little more. You survived the pit as a mortal? Percy demanded. What, like it's hard? Jason tried to joke, but Percy flushed, bolting off the couch. There was a flurry of movement as half of Jason's siblings dove between the two, dragging Percy back. Alfred the cat bolted out of the room. Percy Jackson! Sally's voice rang out over the commotion. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms folded, Bruce at her back. Stand down, Bruce growled. Percy's mouth was still pressed in a tight, angry line, but he went to stand by Estelle. Cass huffed, still perched on the couch. Misunderstanding, she said. Jason made a joke, and it hurt. Tim leaned forward. You said Tartarus. Is that the pit? Percy nodded, jerky and tense, hovering in front of Estelle like he expected to have to defend her. Shits, man! Jason folded his arm. I don't know anything about that. I meant the Lazarus pits. The what? It's, Jason flicked his fingers. Magic jacuzzi, heals all injuries, but leaves your head messed up. He was insane and full of rage for a couple of years, Tim clarified, waving a hand. He's mostly fine now. You're talking about demigods like children of deities, though. Like Wonder Woman? Sally and Percy exchanged a look. He gave a small nod, and she took a deep breath. Percy's father, my former partner, is Poseidon. Bruce made a simple sound of understanding, and Sally let him take her hand. Estelle and I are immortal, and so is her father. You're not demigods, except for Duke, but you do deal with magic? There was a pause, and Bruce cleared his throat. Every one of his kids turned to stare at him, a little alarmed. So did Sally and her kids. Bruce wove his fingers through hers, as if he feared she might run. I'm Batman. The room felt utterly silent. A high-pitched scream came from the nearest door. Wait, really? All eyes turned to Estelle, bouncing out from behind Percy. He grabbed for her collar, but she ducked under his arm, running up to Sally and Bruce. Hopping up and down on her toes, she looked at him with shining eyes. You're actually Batman? You're my favorite! Bruce froze. Before he could compute a reply, she whirled, pointing an accusing finger around the room. Does that mean you guys are heroes too? Like Robin and Nightwing and stuff? Dick cautiously raised his hands. I'm Nightwing? Estelle shrieked, flinging herself across the room. Dick rocked backward as she tackled him into a hug. You guys are all my favorites! What the hell, Bee? Tim asked. Sally's laugh was a little shaky, but she hadn't let go of Bruce's hand. You're serious? I am. Shit, Percy whispered. Damn, Bee. Jason raised his eyebrows. You like her. Bruce doesn't tell anyone, Tim confirmed. I was best friends with Superboy for years before Bee let me tell him of my civilian identity. He didn't tell Superman and Wonder Woman who he was until they'd been fighting together for like a decade. Bee, what the... Dick cut himself off, glancing down at the little girl still looking at him with starry eyes. He swallowed whatever angry yelling had been about to start. We're your favorite, huh? Because you guys are mortal like me. Batman's the coolest. Jason snorted. Guess he had to be someone's favorite eventually. Sally? Bruce was ignoring his kids, focused on her. She was still laughing a little. Dear, if you can handle my ex being the god of the sea, I can handle you being Batman. We'll figure it out like everything else. Percy? He shrugged uncomfortably, and Estelle darted back across the room to hug him. I just want Mom to be happy. If you make her happy, I don't care if you're Batman or a lobster. I defeated Kronos, and my fiancé and I fought our way through Tartarus. So, Batman or not, I'll still kick your butt if you don't treat her right. Bruce didn't smile, but his eyes softened. Good. Perhaps Jason can show you some of the contingencies I've written, in case I or any of the Justice League were ever to go rogue. You're sharing your contingencies? Tim hissed. Who are you? Alfred cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention to where he stood in the doorway. Dinner is served, if you care to make your way to the dining room. Master Tim, I believe you were raised with manners, were you not? Tim's mouth gaped at the injustice of being the only one scolded, but Cass ruffled his hair as she got off the couch. All okay, little brother. I will explain later. Wait, is that how you know Lois? Sally asked. You know Lois? The question echoed around the room. Oh, I like Miss Lois, Estelle chimed in, skipping after Alfred. She and John are funny. Jason jabbed a finger at Cass, following her out the hallway. That's how you knew Sally wasn't a Black Widow. A what? Sally's eyebrows went up. Percy carefully didn't look at anyone. Do you know who the Lane Kents are? It came up, Sally shrugged, as if this was hardly notable. John is a lovely boy. It was nice to talk to someone who understands. Dick began to laugh, ruffling Estelle's dark curls. B, I changed my mind. I like them. We're keeping them. Bruce rounded the dining table, and pulling out Sally's chair for her. I am relieved to hear it, he drawled. Percy dropped into a chair between Sally and Estelle. You wouldn't happen to have contingencies for the gods, would you? Which pantheon? Jason asked, sitting across from him. Percy gave a slow nod of approval and looked up at Bruce. So, do stepkids get to drive the Batmobile? Laughter rose from all around the table. Sally squeezed Bruce's hand. They were going to be just fine. The end. Author's notes. Dick and Bruce. I have known Estelle Blowfist for 37 seconds, and I would burn the world for her. Everyone at Camp Half-Blood. Same. Glad you understand. Jason, 2 months ago. Sally Jackson? Oh man, she's a great writer. I've already pre-ordered her next book. The way she blends the tragedy of love with studies on the frailty of mortal life. Jason, 2 weeks ago. Sally Jackson is clearly a murdering succubus and a danger to our entire family. Evidence? The only evidence I need is that Bruce likes her. Have you seen that idiot's dating history? Jason, 2 weeks from now. Be who? My only living parent is Sally Jackson. I like to think Estelle has seen and heard so much weird stuff in her 5 years that literally nothing phases her. Excitable hellhound in the backyard? That's a Tuesday. Mom's dating a billionaire? Cool house. Can she see Damien's cats now? Her new stepdad's Batman? Yeah, well, her brother's dad is Poseidon, so that's a reasonable remarriage. Annabeth. Bruce Wayne? Oh, yeah, I checked him out years ago. There's something weird going on, but it's not monster-related. Have fun figuring that out, Seaweed Brain. Enjoy your dinner with a hot billionaire, Sally. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed it. Yep, bye. Have a good day, night, or whatever time it is.